Hey everybody. Hopefully you can hear me with this wind we got going on. This video is about the G word, okay? So G meaning gluten. I know everybody on here is familiar with hearing at least gluten, gluten-free. And so I wanted to come on, I've done some pretty vigilant research the last couple weeks and come on and share some of that information in hopes that it adds value to your knowledge bank and your day-to-day. Gluten. Okay, so gone are the days of memorization. I just wrote it down. I'm just going to share some notes here. So we've all heard about gluten. It's a very popular topic in the media right now. But gluten is a protein found in some grains. Wheat is one of them. I hope you can hear me. But wheat is one of them, and we hear about that one a lot because we produce so much wheat here in this country. And but barley, rye, and spelt, those have gluten as well. So again, gluten is a protein found in wheat. And what do we know about gluten? For sure, what we know is that for some people, about 1 to 2% of the population in the United States at least, gluten causes an autoimmune response. That means those people ingest foods that contain gluten and it tells their immune system to attack, okay? So that's why it's called autoimmune. So our immune system attacks, and guess what it damages? It damages our small intestine, which is responsible for absorbing every nutrient we absorb just about. So very dangerous for those folks. 1 to 2% of the population, and there is diagnostic criteria. So that's called celiacs. The other thing we know, I sure hope you can hear me, this wind is cray-cray, is that some people have a wheat allergy in general. So maybe not necessarily to gluten, but to other components in wheat, causes an allergic reaction, and there's tests to diagnose that as well. So we know those two groups, but what we also know is that there's a group of people that are still suffering from signs and symptoms that are reflective of irritable bowel syndrome. And this is things like abdominal pain, constipation, diarrhea, going back and forth between those two pretty regularly, foggy headedness, fatigue, joint pain, even some skin conditions. So we know it exists and we need to acknowledge it. And let me tell you, the scientific community is acknowledging it. Those people tend to seek out medical attention and they get tested for celiac and wheat allergy and they test negative. So they have no help. They're still suffering from these symptoms, but they test negative for those two things. So in 2011, there was an international expert panel that got together to take a look at all of this, and they came up with an actual label category for these individuals, and it's called non-celiac gluten sensitivity. It's a mouthful, right? Use the acronym, right? So check this out. Why all of a sudden do we have these sensitivities to gluten? There's one theory. It's not, we don't have any data on it, but it's kind of interesting. So humans have been around for 2.5 million years. Wheat has only been introduced the last 10,000 years. And in the 20th century, because of food shortages from both world wars and the exponential increase in global population in the second half of the 20th century, caused the scientists involved in this to create new wheat varieties that have a higher concentration of gluten. Again, gluten's a protein that equals nutrition. So to feed the global population, that's what they set out to do. So everybody's wondering now, is there a possible connection to these gluten-related conditions because of those new wheat varieties that the intention was good to make them? We don't know. Okay, it's a theory. There's no data yet, and I'm sorry, data is important when we're making these calls, okay? So right now, the only way to know if someone would be considered non-celiac gluten sensitive would be defined by this: getting a negative test result for celiac and negative for wheat allergy and positive for experiencing those signs and symptoms I told you about, removing gluten and the symptoms improving within a few hours to a few days, and then you reintroduce gluten back and you get all those same tummy trouble flare-ups again. That's the only way for us to kind of consider these folks in this group of non-celiac gluten sensitivity. We know there's two subgroups. There's just the gluten sensitive people, but there's also people that are sensitive to gluten, the cow's milk and the eggs, and they seem to all be connected in that realm. So we're still learning about this, but I want to reassure everyone that the scientific community and researchers are on this. I know science doesn't happen and discoveries don't happen as fast as we want them to, because those of us that suffer with these things, this can seem like a really long road. But let me tell you, the paper I read, super duper, all these cellular biochemical pathways that they are looking for, what is exactly the key issue, so we can create these diagnostic criteria and actually diagnose these folks and get them the help they need. So there is hope. We're moving forward in that direction. Currently, they're saying the prevalence of non-celiac gluten sensitivity is about 0.5% of the US population, or up to 6%. So it might be more like 3. So at present, that's what we know now. So again, not a huge chunk, but a lot of non-medical groups are touting that 17 million Americans have this gluten sensitivity. It is possible. But here's some considerations I want everybody to take home with them about this gluten conversation. Number 1, if you have these tummy troubles I listed earlier in the video, remove gluten from your diet. You can look online how to do that. And if your symptoms get better and you find if you do reintroduce gluten and they get worse, then it might be a good idea to steer clear of gluten. I do think it's also important to consider, is it gluten or is it all the processed foods you've just eliminated? Because wheat is the number one, that and corn and soy, but wheat is in just about every processed food. So I don't have a gluten sensitivity at present, but if I eat a lot of breads, crackers, and pastas and other snacky stuff in a week's time, like on vacation or something, I get those tummy troubles that we all experience. But I can still eat whole grain, whole food barley that has gluten, and bulgur wheat, which is cracked wheat, very whole food like, and not have those issues. So again, is it removing the processed food, or is it actually is it the gluten? That's a consideration for you to know. Also, gluten-free diet, the industry itself and the products sold, is big business. In 2003, the sales for these were $100 million. In 2015, it increased to $1.68 billion. So it went from $100 million to $2.68 billion. Big bucks. They're going to try to sell you all their gluten-free products. And granted, people who have celiac or even wheat allergies, they should be able to enjoy some pasta here and there. And so it's great to have those products for those individuals. But also know that if you want to go gluten-free, you can do it the whole food route by veggies and fruits, buckwheat, quinoa, brown rice, corn. Those are all whole grains in their whole form that don't have gluten. So just consider that. You also save a lot of money on your grocery bill as well. So the last thing I want you to consider is this. There's a lot of elimination diets out there. There's a ton. And what we need to consider is going forth with these elimination diets, what does that do? Is that having a negative consequence with our relationship with food? Food is all about relationship and emotions and positive things, you know, positive celebrations in cultures and negative ones in cultures, and food is everywhere. And if we continue on going up and down on these elimination diets, is that negatively impacting our relationship with food? Because that can also put us in a negative situation. It can lead to some deficiencies. We've seen some people become deficient in things because they go on some of these elimination diets. So again, those 4 main considerations, we don't know everything yet. We are acknowledging that there is a bigger group out there that are non-celiac gluten sensitive, and we are just really looking forward to having the diagnostic criteria to really find who that is, help them, and in the meantime, stick to those considerations if it really helps you out. So thanks for watching. Happy Monday, fun day, and see you guys next time.